G'day, legends, and welcome to the Thursday Sesh by Celtic Down Under. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me, as usual, on a Thursday are Willie and Stephen. How are you, Willie?
A bit tired tonight. It's been a long, boring old day today, doing nothing much in the construction world. So we'll see if we can make it through the hour.
How you doing, Stephen?
Yeah, all right, mate. It's been a bit of a bipolar week, hasn't it? Really, we've been up and down, and I feel as if I've spent 3/4 of my time looking at Twitter, and waiting on the next Celtic notification coming up, only to find that it's someone's birthday or something like that, So, you just love last week at the transfer window? So it's been a bit mental this week.
Yeah, I had that before. I was sitting there chatting to my wife before getting ready to come in. He turned the laptop on, and all of a sudden, Celtic update. What is it? Oh, okay. It's just them sharing notes for, sharing highlights of us versus Man City all those years ago. So it's like, oh, okay. Thanks for everything. Yeah, it's great fun. So what we'll do, podcast, there's a fair few talking points to get through. So let's not muck around here at all. Before we start though, RL77 in the comments, patience, signings, and victory sounds like a form of solicitors. Yeah, it does. But the first three letters of each of those words also mean something majestical after this morning's result for us. So there you go. And it ties into the transfer window because, we had to show patience. We've got some signings in. Hopefully we get a few more and we get a victory on the weekend. So there you go. That's why I named it that way. So let's wind up a few Huns. Happy days. But before we crack in, if you haven't already done so, please hit the like button on the video. Helps us with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't done so as well, there's about 35-40% of our people who watch the videos on YouTube that haven't subscribed. So please hit subscribe if you like what we do. If you listen to the audio format of the podcast, like the podcast, follow it, subscribe to it, and then also leave us a comment. So, it'll really help us out on the algorithm and in the podcast sphere. So happy days. So, Stephen, Celtic announced the signing of Lewis Palma. He gets given the number 7 shirt. So the first thing is, what's your thoughts of him coming in after it finally being announced? And second of all, would you start him straight away in the derby on the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see the deal finally being closed after a few days. I think it first hit the sort of socials about a week ago. So to get it over the line with a couple of days to spare in the transfer window is good, because hopefully it leaves us free to look at some other things. He looks a good player. He profiles well as a dribbler. Likes to take people on. He's direct. He's quick. And importantly, what stands out for me is he can take a set piece. So he can score a good free kick, and he's good at corners as well, which is something we tend to be lacking, given the fact we had 19 corners against St Johnstone on the weekend, and we could have had 19 more and wouldn't have troubled their goalkeeper. So someone who can hit a decent corner is something we badly lack. So it's good to see him in the door for that point of view, and the fact he knocked back the Huns. Which makes it even more sweeter to see him coming, even though they're giving it the big we didn't want him, let the jilted lover routine. But it's nice to see him in the door. Whether we start him on Sunday at Ibrox, probably not. I'd probably have him on the bench. We'll probably talk a little bit about the team selection later, but I probably wouldn't start him. But it's good to have quality like that on the bench to bring on in the later parts of the game and stretch it a bit.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you on that. But one thing I do want to say, Stephen, he's not the only dribbler, because on the Celtic Down Under podcast, you've got myself here. So we'll dribble on with a bit of rubbish here. But Willie, what's your thoughts on the signing? And would you play Palma, start him? Would you bring him off the bench on the weekend? What are your thoughts?
I'm excited to see him. I'd like to see what he can do in Scottish football. He's certainly taken Greek football by storm, so there's nothing to say he won't do the same in Scotland. He's good at dribbling, as Stevie says. He can take a shot, he can take a free kick, he can play anywhere across the front. So it adds an extra dimension to the starting lineups or the bench. As it goes for the weekend, I would probably put him on the bench. I don't think I would be thinking I'll make one or two changes to the team from the weekend past, but I wouldn't be going to making wholesale changes and throwing debuts all over the pitch, because it's a tricky venue. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the boy can do.
Yeah, for me, I just look at it and go, depends how we're going to line up on whether I'd start him or not. But even if you bring him off the bench, you imagine him coming on for the last 30 minutes, running at some tired legs, especially when, we'll talk about this a bit later on in the pod anyway, but certain injury they picked up last night and, been a bit leg weary from their game and all that sort of stuff. There's a whole bunch of factors there to play in, but I'd probably wouldn't start him bench. But do you guys hear the story about why his announcement was held up? Like, it was because of the air traffic control issues and flights getting him over there. So that's why it took an extra day or two. But before all that, he put in a request for the number 17 shirt. I've never thought 17 was such a crazy number at the club. But, you had Jota had it, Christie had it. Now, what's it called? Naroski's picked it. So he couldn't get that. So of all the top numbers to settle for, let's just get, probably in my opinion, the cream of the crop. The number 7 shirt is not a bad backup plan to have, especially if you're going to win. I think that was a bit of a funny story I heard too.
Listen, if he can have as good a debut season as the last Honduran we signed, we're on to a winner, like. So, and he's got the number 7 shirt, so sort of bodes well. It could be a big heavy shirt to wear too, though. You never know.
I want to be able to Nadir Kifty in that top. So there you go.
I was going to say that the sort of the aura of that number 7 jersey is just long gone now since Henrik Larsson wore it. You've had a succession of absolute turkeys wearing it since then. So it's not a big deal for me. I don't think the weight of it will weigh him down any. And hopefully, if you can get close to what the famous Henrik Larsson did in a Celtic shirt, then he'll be doing very well.
Even if he did half of what Larsson did, would be like, we are not worthy. Bill and Ted bow down to stuff like that. Yeah, it'd be brilliant. But
if he scores from a corner, direct from a corner, like he did in Greece last season, I'll be really happy with it. Like, so,
if he does that, Willie, there's a fair chance there's going to be an emergency podcast called straight away, and we're all going to be on here just like bowing down to our, a new number 7, just like absolutely like sounding like, we're Peter Lawwells to Neil Lennon.
The little screen name Willie in his 7.
We'll change it. It'll be all over Twitter. And they had that. Everyone changed their name on Twitter to have Bolingoli.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Everyone will change it to Palma. Yeah. So anyway, we'll keep discussing the transfer window, which is closing. What's it, tomorrow? It closes. So with the time difference over here to back over in Scotland and everything, it's a bit of a doozy with 9 hours ahead. So Willie's like 11 hours ahead over in New Zealand. So it's for us trying to keep an eye on the transfer news. It all probably happens when we're snoring. So we'll get into it. So Willie, we've got we've been linked with striker Matthias Kistvaden from Brøndby. That's been given the kibosh. That's not happening. It's apparently too much, but we've now been linked with Sydney Van Hooijdonk. Looks a decent prospect to me. We've also been linked with loan moves for Paulo Bernardo from Benfica and Nat Phillips from Liverpool. So if those two come in that we've been linked with in Bernardo and Phillips, that's someone who can play as an 8 and a 10 in the middle of the park and another centre back. What other positions do we need to fill? Because for me, with Palma in, and if you potentially bring in Van Hooijdonk, you set it striker. So, and even if we don't bring Van Hooijdonk in, we've got Maeda who can go to striker if we're desperate. So what other positions do we need to fill? Is it still left back and goalkeeper for you?
Yeah, definitely still goalkeeper and left back. I know Joe Hart's had a good game at the weekend, but I still wouldn't be too confident with him going in the goals in the Champions League coming up. So I would still be looking at try to bring in a first team goalkeeper, but a left back as well, because Greg Taylor's form this season has been a little bit concerning. And with Burnaby liking those tweets and not looking the part, I don't think he's the answer either. So yeah, definitely be still looking for them two positions if we can tie them up.
For me, I just look at it and go, going into the preseason, all the talk was, the main priority, get a new goalkeeper. I said that on this show. I said it on numerous podcasts. So there's no hiding it. goalkeeper was the priority for me going into this season at the moment. But with what's happened recently, I look at it and go, we know Joe Hart will probably leave at the end of the season. So as long as we get another goalkeeper in either now in the next couple of days if we can, or in the winter break, worst case scenario, so he's got 6 months to bed in and everything to be ready to go for next season, I could be happy. I could live with that. I wouldn't be happy about it, but I could live with it. But back to priority. What's your thoughts overall, Stephen?
Yeah, pretty much in agreement with Willie. It's definitely a left back and a goalkeeper. The goalkeeper one's a strange situation because it seems so obvious, doesn't it? That's where we're short. Not just for the point of view that Joe Hart's forum's kind of tailed off a bit, but the fact that if Joe Hart gets injured, which can always happen, then we're left with Benji Siegrist or Scott Bain in goals for the Champions League. But that's a terrifying prospect to me. So I think it's really negligence not having a goalkeeper in, even if it was just a number 2. I was reading on one of the forums, Kerrydale Street, today that we're getting linked strongly with a 16-year-old goalkeeper from Queen's Park, a guy who he's actually playing in the first team for them at the moment at 16. So this guy's meant to be an exceptionally good goalkeeper. And Man City are sniffing around as well. So I'm not sure whether they've got an eye on that, maybe signing him and maybe loaning him back to Queen's Park with a view to bring him back in next summer, or whether they're tracking a young goalkeeper at another club and planning to get him on a pre-contract or something for next year, and they're just using Joe Hart to tide us through this season. But I think it's a mistake because he cost us goals in the Champions League last year, and I think he'll cost us goals again this year. So I'm pretty hopeful we will get a left back in between now and the end of the window. I see Stephen McGowan was saying this morning that that's our next position we want filled after the current crop are in. And that's sort of encouraging because we know Stephen McGowan has a direct link into the boardroom. So you can always take that as gospel. So hopefully we'll see a name springing up, maybe not today or maybe tomorrow, and a last minute signing having a left back, but there's just nothing really coming out about a goalkeeper to suggest that we're close or even looking in that, and it's pretty strange.
Nothing. We're not hearing anything about it. So I'm going to take Robert Gibson. We're going to start a rumor. Robert Gibson, you're in the know. Here we go. Ring Buffon, get him out of retirement, bring him to Glasgow. There we go. Let's start that rumor here. See if it happens. But yeah, Queen's Park keeper, I have heard about him. But then my question ties into, we've had a development pathway, a very specific one for Toby Oluwayemi for the last few years. And he's just gone out on loan to get regular first team football over in Austria in the second tier there. So if you bring in this 16-year-old keeper from Queen's Park and you loan him back, like you're saying, Stephen, then next year, if we don't bring anyone else in, is it Toby battling against the 16-year-old kid for that starting spot next year? I don't know. I just think it's a little bit of negligence. Like, I would love us to bring someone in, especially for the Champions League. I'm flip-flopping on it, Stephen. I was like, I wanted someone, and I'm like, I could live with it. And then you've just talked me back into, we've got to get a keeper now. I don't know. It's a bit of a doozy.
Maybe Rodgers will get a bit more of a tune out of Joe Hart. I mean, we were all talking, plenty of people were talking about how Joe Hart was going along with his clearances more on the weekend. So maybe Rodgers will work on the weaknesses in his game. He has got a good track record for improving players, and he certainly turned Craig Gordon around, turned him into a really good goalkeeper for Celtic. So maybe he can work with Joe Hart and get the best out of him, and he can maybe get us another season before we need to jump into the market. But I really did expect him to sign a goalkeeper, and I'm pretty surprised we haven't.
Robert Gibson, we need a keeper who has hit puberty at the very least. So we'll do that. So what we'll do, let us know in the comments what positions is the priority going forward. Like, realistically, I'm looking at it going, okay, Nat Phillips is coming in to play centre back. Yeah, he's a right-footed centre back, but he can play on the left. He's played Champions League before. He seems like he's the quality, like the size. He's 6'3". He's good in the air, decent with the ball at his feet. He's actually a defender who likes to defend, which is, I look at him in the the Carter Vickers mould when we brought him in terms of we brought him in and he'd been a bit like chop and change and not getting a consistent run. So I think he could be a decent one for us to bring in if we have the long-term, like an option to buy at the end of the season. Van Hooijdonk, 20-something goals in 60-something games in Holland. It's decent. So if we could get him in as a striker, that would cover the issue for when all our players leave for the Asian Cup in January and February. So that would help us out on that front. And then I look at it going, Paulo Bernardo coming in from Benfica. Apparently he's going to be in Glasgow today doing his medical and signing it all off. That's pretty much the same sort of move that we did for Jota out of Benfica. So signing from their B team, loan with an option to buy, probably cost us around the same money Jota did. But here's a guy who comes straight into the first team. You'd think Turnbull would be relevant. For me, he'd come in, Turnbull would be relegated straight to the bench. So the talk is we brought in Palma, we bring in Bernardo, and there's still 3 more, is what the talk is. Got anything to add about any of the transfer stuff before we crack on, Willie?
No, I kind of the deal for Nate Phillips is one I would certainly look to move on because he's strong in the air. He's got a decent pass on him. Like he's played Champions League, he had a man-of-match performance against Leipzig in the Champions League. He's played against AC Milan. He's a no-nonsense defender, and we're really short on that. So a loan deal for him makes good sense for me. And as I said earlier, I wouldn't be handing out too many debuts at Ibrox, but if he comes in the door, he'd be one of them I would be willing to start, and I would put him in ahead of Liam Scales because watching Scales at the weekend, it's quite clear to see he's not quite Celtic standard. And so Nate Phillips, I would definitely be interested in that. The Bruno Fernandes, Paulo Bernardo one, I don't know. I know. I know. He's got a 100 million release clause from his contract in Benfica. It's not uncommon. It was the same with Jota. He had a massive release clause, but he's a 2-footed player. He plays box to box. He's an intelligent player who finds spaces between the lines at the level he plays at. So it'd be nice to see if he can sort of make the step up to give us a little bit of guile that our midfield is sadly lacking at this moment in time. So there's a couple of them I wouldn't be adverse to for sure. Like
on the release clause stuff, Willie, I wouldn't be too stressing about it because it's only 90 million, Willie. But the thing is, let's have a bit of a chuckle here. The way it's done in Portugal and in Spain is you have to have a release clause in every contract. That's across the rules.
So they just throw it in as high as they can in case somebody comes in there and they make it and they suddenly haven't got a good one in there. But he looks like a good player. So
I think the sort of release clause thing came in, or it started to become important when Neymar moved to PSG because he had a release clause of something like 250 million or something, and nobody ever thought that would ever be met, but it did. PSG came in and paid the money, and that sort of triggered off all the talk about it. But I wouldn't really worry too much about the release clause. I think Jared's frozen just now, so we'll just batter on without him at the moment. On the signings himself, Nate Phillips, I agree with you, Willie. I think he's potentially a fantastic sign. I can't believe we're possibly going to get this over the line. I think potentially he could become straight away the second best defender at the club behind Cameron Carter-Vickers. And I hope that if we can get this done with a decent release, with a decent option to buy, then that could be an incredible bit of business. I would definitely be in for that, looking for that option to buy. You back with us, Jared?
Yeah, I'm back.
Jumping about.
We were just talking. I was just mentioning about Nate Phillips here. My opinion is he's got potential to be one of our best signings of the window. If you look at the experience and the runs he's got on the board, he's played games in the Bundesliga, he's played games in EPL, he's played games in the Champions League. The only reason he's not playing for Liverpool is because of guys like Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez. And Van Dijk was regarded as the best centre-half in the world a couple of years ago. So that's no reflection on him as a footballer, not being able to get in that team. But the Liverpool fans are all fairly complimentary when you ask them about him. There's certainly enough Liverpool fans here in Australia to ask, and they all say the same thing. He's a dependable guy who they know if he's asked to step into a Liverpool team, will do a job. So I'd be like, hopefully we get an option to buy on the loan, even if it's up 7, 8, 9 million. I'd be willing to pay that for him. And I think I'm quite excited about that one. I hope we get it on across the line. And like Willie says, he goes straight into the team for Ibrox. Probably the only one of the new guys that I would put straight into the team, because I think he'll handle that no problem.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'm looking at it as well in that when he was at Liverpool had an injury crisis. They signed Ben Davies from Preston North End, and then Phillips beat out Davies. So that's also another thing. If Davies is starting for the Huns, well then, you know, it shows this guy's better than him already. So that's a good level to at least know that he'll do the job for us.
They actually pulled him. They pulled him back from his loan deal at Stuttgart rather than play Ben Davies. They took him back, sent him back out of Stuttgart, and once the crisis was over, like, so yeah, it's a deal that makes sense for me. Like, I'd be quite excited by it. Like, so yeah.
All right, we'll crack on to the next topic. So the talk is Lil Abada is going to be accepting the contract extension that Celtic has offered to him. So I think that's good bit of business because, you know, let's look at it, go back 3 or 4 months and we all thought he'd be away. So Jota moves on, he starts to get a bit more game time, and yeah, I think that's actually been an addition by subtraction sort of thing with Abada, in that you managed to keep him, and now Jota moves, we get the money, we save it, and then he gets his spot. Now he signs his new contract. I actually am really happy with that. What do you reckon, Stephen?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say I'm absolutely ecstatic about it. I'll be more ecstatic if Hatate signs an extension. But Abada, it's always good to have a guy there that you know can come on and weigh in with a goal, get in the back post. I do think he's still got deficiencies in his game he needs to work on. And hopefully Brendan Rodgers can bring him on as a player and make him a little bit better. I'm just a little bit concerned that we're collecting wingers a little bit here, having signed Palma today. We've also got Maeda on that wing. We've got Marco Tilio to come in. We've got Yang, and we've got Abada as well. And that's before you even mentioned James Forrest and Rocco Vata and guys like that who, you know, probably won't get a sniff. So maybe a little bit of a concern that one of them maybe potentially could have been moved on. But, you know, happy enough. If Abada's happy to stay, happy to learn under a coach like Rodgers, then I'm happy for him too.
I think it's also get to work under Brendan, who loves to have 7,000 wingers in his squad, so that always helps. But, you know, getting him to come in and develop and work for another year and then potentially be sold on, it's twofold, because the Abada will get the development he needs, and then also the new contract helps us protect our asset, who's at a young age that we can sell on and we'll get more for, because he's still got 4 years left on his contract. So that's why I'm happy about it as well. What do you reckon, Willie?
No, it's good to hear he's signing a new deal. He's always good for a goal here, like every other game. So his goal return itself is probably worth a new contract. It could be the shot in the arm he needs. He hasn't really hit the ground running this season. It could be the shot in the arm he needs before getting up against his old friend Barisic at Ibrox. So if Barisic will come out from behind the couch once he sees his name on the team sheet, like, you know what I mean? So hopefully it might work in favour. But it's good news. There's not much more you can add to what you boys have already said. Like, so.
Come on, Willie. We all know what happened. Barisic did a hamstring in his game yesterday for the simple fact that you know, so he can avoid it.
What's that about? They're signing the new deal. Oh, back of my legs feeling a bit sore here.
Looks a bit like a Charlie Mulgrew hamstring, that one.
Yeah, it's the old, what they used to call the Neymar hamstring injury, get around Christmas or around his sister's birthday or whatever, so he could fly back to Brazil for treatment and miss 10 days. So he'd always do it. It happened every time for him when he was at PSG. So there you go. Now, come on, comment section. Don't let us down. it's time to have a laugh at the Huns getting pumped by PSV. They didn't qualify for the Champions League group stages. Now, devil's advocate, PSV looked unreal, in my opinion. Like, they looked a class above them. They probably would have given us a doing as well with the form we're in at the moment and everything. But I'm not taking anything away from what they did. They're a great team. But suffering your jocks, Huns, off to the Europa League you go. Way to lose a bunch of cash. So, Willie, what do you think of that info? You know, they're missing out and everything.
Listen, there's absolutely no disgrace losing to PSV Eindhoven. Getting scadded 5-1 by them is a different matter. Like, it's comedy gold. Like, sitting there watching Goldson's own goal is just is icing on the cake, wasn't it? Like, you know, it's just absolutely amazing. The fact now that they're going to lose money to us, we'll see something about that soon. They have to go and play on Sundays now. We'll be playing on Saturdays. They'll be playing on Sundays. So they'll be playing second fiddle. They'll be playing catch up. That might not suit the way that they're going to do. And to be honest, they're going to have to make it the whole way to the Europa League final to try and match us financially. What we'll get for just qualifying for the group stages of the Champions League. So it's been a good night. It's alleviated my fears. I came in to this week after watching the St. Johnstone game thinking, oh shit, we're going to Ibrox and we're not in good form and it's not going to be good for us. And then watching that last night, it's kind of alleviated little fears I've had and nerves have been going through me through the week. Like, so feeling a bit more confident after seeing the scoreline.
So before we go to you, Stephen, I'll get some comments up. So Robert was 5-1, should have been 10. He also commented saying Bill's mole was fit to burst in Holland. And his last comment on it was Cantwell couldn't stop playing with his hairband against PSV and having a sook. What's new there? So, and then we got Paddy Boy so we make an extra 4 million with them losing. Thank you for buying this Palma. There you go, exactly. Thanks for that. But Stephen, what was your thoughts on that result and the Champions League before we dive into the draw stuff and everything on the next topic?
Yeah, woke up to that good news. It was 2-0 with PSV when I woke up. Went for a shower, get ready for work, and I woke up, got out of the shower, it was 5-1. So, yeah, very, very nice news to wake up to. Probably a little bit of a warning for us, though, about the perils of having to qualify for the Champions League in a situation you want to avoid at all costs, because when you come up against a team like PSV and they hit form on the night, it's really difficult. And, you know, as Rangers found to their cost, didn't see an awful lot of the game. I saw the goals. You can see there an awful lot of goals from crosses, which is something you don't expect them to. I noticed they targeted Tavernier a lot with balls over his head, getting in behind him, try to expose his defensive frailties. And that's something we've managed to do with a bit of success in previous games against them. So hopefully Brendan was watching that and we can get at him. And certainly pin him back in his own half. But it was absolutely hilarious, and Willie summed it up. Their own goal, the fifth goal, just put the perfect icing on a perfect cake for the evening. And I do believe, like Rangers, they always throw everything on the table to try and qualify for the Champions League. So the fact they've missed out now will cause them financial stress. How much financial stress it causes them, we'll need to wait and see. But I think it certainly rules them out buying anyone else before the end of the window, if they were planning to. And I do think if they'd qualified for the groups, they'd have probably threw more money into the transfer market. But now I think they're going to have to look at maybe selling a player, probably, if not this window, certainly in January. And if for any reason they failed again to qualify next year, I think they would be, you know, in a real bit of bother financially. So great news for us. Not great for the coefficient, of course, but you know, who cares about that when you can laugh at the Huns.
Okay, so talking about the finances stuff, it's a perfect segue for us, Stephen. Perfect. Was this tweet here? So Celtic earned 19.875 million euro more than Rangers from UEFA before a ball is kicked. So for qualifying for the Champions League group stages, we're getting 15.64 million. The 10-year coefficiency payment, we're getting 10.233. So let's not, compared to their 3.168. So let's rule the coefficient stuff out. That's irrelevant for the comparison at the moment. Just on us qualifying for the groups at 15.64 and them in the Europa League groups at 3.63 million, and then their TV pool money of 700,000 compared to our 6.5 million, the difference between the two of them losing last night is putting basically, what is it, about 12 million on the groups, and then another 5 and a bit. So yeah, there you go. There's your 19, 17, 18 million easy before we even look at any coefficient stuff in our pockets. So that's absolutely unbelievable how badly that's going to hurt them. And you were saying, Stephen, about they might have to sell a player. Well, the talk is they're trying to get rid of Kamara to Leeds or someone like that. They already get some players out. But Beale came out and said, and it was on one of the red tops just before we jumped on, that, we were always going to have a quiet end to the window. That was his quote. Really now, mate? I don't believe it. I look at it and go, if they make group stages, they were just going to spend and spend and spend like they did last year. And yeah, now they don't have it. They're basically trying to change the narrative and control it. So it's funny to see, and yeah, more of the same.
Well, what else you got to look at is that Aberdeen's income for European football this season will be closer to Rangers' figure than Rangers' figure is closer to ours. So that's another wee added bonus to look at.
Didn't even think of that, Willie. So that's perfect. Happy days.
It's also worth mentioning that Liverpool and Ajax are both in the Europa League this year as well. So hopefully they've got some PTSD from last year as well. So another couple of scuddings from Liverpool and Ajax wouldn't go amiss. So any notion that they have now, and of course they're coming out now, predictable crap about how the Europa League's a better place to be for them, and all this nonsense. And maybe we'll get to the final again and all sorts of crap like that. But they need to get by Liverpool and Ajax first before they get anywhere near that. So, yeah, just laughable nonsense they're coming out with now, and that's laughable nonsense from Beale, who just makes a clown of himself every time he opens his mouth and moves his lips. To be honest, he's becoming a bit of a comedy figure.
What do you expect from the Lavy drinkers? I don't expect anything less.
Yeah, I think if for any reason we manage a win at Ibrox on the weekend, I reckon he could be on a sticky wicket by this time next week.
He's not very popular. I've got a Rangers supporting mate, and he's not very popular with him. Like, he just says, if you get anything at Ibrox at the weekend, then I want him out. Like, so he's already on a sugary peg. Like,
see the screenshots from what's it called, from follow whatever, they're already after him after last night's results. Not good enough. He needs to go. He's the new Geo. Blah blah blah, and they're already piling on. It's great to see. Brilliant. So, Champions League draw. What we'll do, I'm going to bring up the pots. What I want you guys to do in the comments is put in there what your preferred perfect draw would be and what your worst case scenario nightmare draw would be. In the comments, just put it in there for us so we can bring them all up at the end. But we're going to have some fun with this. So as a start off here, Stephen Ray's a perfect draw be Feyenoord, Porto, Red Star, or Copenhagen. Okay, so that's basically what he's thinking. So I'm going to bring up, so shout out to Steve Smith for getting this ready for us. So in pot one, you've got Man City, Sevilla, Barcelona, Napoli, Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, Benfica, and Feyenoord. So if we look at them, Stephen, who would be your preferred one of them in your best case scenario, and who would be your worst case scenario one?
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a Hobson's choice, really. They're all really good teams, but I think your best case scenario that's got to be Feyenoord. I mean, I think that's listed there in the coefficient place. So they're the lowest of the pot one teams in the coefficient ladder. So if you can avoid Man City I wouldn't even worry too much about playing Alexa Sevilla, Barcelona, Napoli. I'd want to avoid Bayern Munich, PSG, Benfica as well. I think we could give them a game. But for a pot one team, I think it'd definitely be Feyenoord would be your best case scenario. And your worst case would probably be Man City, who are the best team in Europe. And I don't think we would lay a glove on them.
Willie, you got anything to add on that? Or you want to do pot two?
I wouldn't, just from pot one, I would say you would definitely want to avoid Napoli or Man City. Feyenoord would be your dream draw, and if you wanted a nice fixture, Sevilla would be the one that you want. But pot two, Jesus, that's a scary pot, isn't it? I mean, Porto's probably the team in there you would say the one you would want to take out of that, like. But there's some big dogs sitting in that group there ready to do some damage, like Real Madrid, Man United, Inter, Borussia. Oof. They could be some sore scores in that one there, like, if you don't get your A game on. So for me, the dream draw, if you like, from the dream draw from that, I would really like fancy a shot at Borussia Dortmund, but that's just because I haven't seen Celtic play Borussia Dortmund, so I wouldn't mind seeing that. But for the dream draw, it would be Porto. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So pot two, just for the people listening to the podcast, so we can keep it. You got Real Madrid, Man United, Inter, Dortmund, Atletico Madrid, Leipzig, Porto, and Arsenal. So, out of those ones there, yeah, Stephen, who would you be your dream and what would be the worst case?
Yeah, well, you want to avoid Real Madrid, and I think probably Inter. I would want to avoid them as well. But Man United are no great shakes. Their form at the start of this season, I've watched a little bit of their games, and they've been awful. Borussia Dortmund would be a good trip, although a very good team and difficult to beat. Leipzig, we've played Leipzig a few times in recent years, and we've given them a game on a number of occasions. Maybe not got the results, but we've certainly matched up to them quite well. So I wouldn't be too concerned about Leipzig. But Porto, yeah, I would agree with Willie. That would be a decent draw. Wouldn't like to play Arsenal. I think Arsenal are a better team than a lot of people give them credit for. So anyone except Arsenal, Inter, or Real Madrid, I think I'd be reasonably happy.
Pot three, you've got Shakhtar Donetsk, Salzburg, AC Milan, Sporting Braga, PSV, Lazio, Red Star Belgrade, and Copenhagen. So for me, perfect draw. I want Red Star. If I can't get them, I have Copenhagen. Red Star just because my in-laws are Serb and that's their club, so it'll be absolutely great fun to see that game, and the atmosphere would be amazing. But best case is that. Worst case, probably AC Milan or Salzburg. That's probably, or PSV even, actually, to be honest with you, after last night's. But what do you reckon, Stephen?
Yeah, I was having a look at this today, and I was just wondering about Shakhtar Donetsk and what kind of shape they're in this year, because really, if you took Mudryk out their team from last year, we should have beat them home and away. And Mudryk's obviously gone. He's gone to Chelsea. And I'm just wondering who did they sign with the money they got for Mudryk, and how have they been going recently? Has any of you guys been keeping an eye on them?
Well, they've got the boy who was linked with Celtic. Is it Tete? He just walked away from them. He's ripped up his contract. So I think the preferred draw from there would be Shakhtar. Like, I mean, Cervena Zvezda, I mean, they're another good team, but I think we could give them a game. But I would like to avoid AC Milan at all costs, as well as PSV. I don't fancy going out against them either. Like, so, but I think Shakhtar Donetsk would be the plum draw out of that one. I think we could really actually go one better this time round against them, Mike.
And remember, Shakhtar are still not playing at home, so the away game against Shakhtar will probably be in Poland again. Yeah, and I think on Red Star Belgrade as well, they'd be a very hard team to beat away from home. I think they beat Liverpool, was it last year or the year before, over there in the Champions League. So, the atmosphere there is it's really, hostile, really tough, very hostile, very tough place to go. So I think, I would pick Shakhtar out of that as a plum draw. And I would like to avoid AC Milan, because obviously, any iteration of AC Milan is always going to be a good side, and I've got no idea why they've ended up in pot three, to be honest.
Yeah.
when you consider the Huns would have been in pot 3 if they'd qualified, to them to be in the same pot as AC Milan is pretty bizarre.
Yep. I look at it, and then in pot 4, we can't play any of these teams, but Young Boys, Real Sociedad, Galatasaray, us, Newcastle United, Antwerp, Union Berlin, and RC Lens. So looking at them, we miss out on a couple of returns with Kieran Tierney at Sociedad. We miss out on Union Berlin, so Juranovic coming back. But I'll just look at that and go, no big deal. The only one, if you're up for an away day, that I think would be great to go to would be a game at Galatasaray. I think that'd be an interesting game. Just it can be a bit feral, but we'll bring up some comments here. So Martin Weir, if we sign Bernardo and draw Benfica, can he play? Usually, yes, you can. That's happened with was it Paddy Roberts with Man City? He was able to play against him in the Champions League. It tends to only be domestic things where they have that blocking situation.
I think it depends what's in the loan agreement, but it's not something you generally put in teams when you're getting them from Europe.
It depends on the team you're getting them from too. Is it Benfica you're getting them from, or is it Benfica's reserves? Because they're two separate entities, are they not? And then you just kind of promote their way through. So you might actually be signing them from Benfica's reserves.
Yeah, good point, Willie. And then we've got Robert Gibson. I hate Porto and Mourinho after that fast in 2003, so let's draw them and fix that.
Portuguese teams are always dangerous, though. Like you see it and say, "Oh, there'll be a plum draw," and they're probably the team you would take, but they're always dangerous teams, especially in Portugal. Like they're no mugs.
We've played them since 2003 as well. I think we've exercised those demons already.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything in that. And I was at the game in Seville, and I was, it was a really disappointing night. But all these years later, you look back on it and you think, we were just beaten by a better team on the night, in a very tight game. And the fact we took them to extra time was great credit how good that Celtic team was. So I'm not really interested in Porto for that point of view. It's an entirely different scenario now.
Yeah.
Maybe Atletico Madrid. There's still a few ghostly exercise with Atletico Madrid, so it'd be good to get another shot at them.
Deco was the difference between the two teams that night, wasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
I'm going to bring up some of the comments here. So Robert Gibson saying Man City, Atletico, and AC Milan. I don't know if you'll want that or if that's let me run away from that. Either option. Then we've got RL77. Give us final Porto, Copenhagen. Robert's other ones were Sevilla, Porto, Copenhagen. Okay, so that one was his doom and gloom ones. Mickey Moynihan, Dream, Feyenoord, Red Bull, Leipzig, and Red Star, Belgrade. Dreadful one would be Man City, Real Madrid, and Lazio. Hey, we could still beat Lazio and get third because those other two teams will absolutely pump everyone else.
Yeah.
Michael Ross was, we need to make Celtic Park a bit more nasty. And then Alan Woods, Feyenoord for Wim Janssen, Dortmund for their fans and stadium, and Braga because we might be able to beat them. Not bad.
Just on Michael Ross's comment there, that's absolutely 100%. We need to, create some sort of hostile atmosphere at Celtic Park again, where teams are scared to come. Because there was a time when we would have fancy to beat any team in that draw, pot 1, 2, or 3 at Celtic Park. And we've certainly fallen a long way from those days, but something we need to get back towards again and make teams be afraid of coming to Celtic Park instead of it being like a bucket list item for them.
Yep, and there's another comment here from Michael Ross as well. Call me Mr. Doom and Gloom, but the best we can hope for this year's Champions League is a narrow defeat in the final. But hey, I could be wide of the mark. I like the thoughts. So what we'll do is we're going to go through some stuff. So I'm going to share my screen now. So this could be a bit fun because I haven't done this in a while. So let me just figure it out. There we go. Add that to the stream. I've got to just change this now for a second. Okay, cool. So we've got the Interactive UEFA Draw Simulator. This was shared around a bit. So if we select the competition, this is like you create your Champions League, Europa League, or Conference League group stage draw for your team based on predicted outcomes. So if we go Champions League, and then we go scroll down and find us a Celtic, what kind of draw do we want? So you can go random or your hardest draw based on your club, whatever that is, ELO, and then you got team coefficient, market value, and then your easiest draw. So just to look at this for a bit of fun. So if we go that and make the draw, it's saying Champions League draw for Celtic. Hardest picked ones would be Man City, Real Madrid, AC Milan, and us. And the group prediction, there you go. We're miles down here. Coefficient 31 points. Look at the market value of all the teams.
Look at the market value of Man City, 1.2 billion.
Yep. And we're, 1.19. Sorry, not even that. 0.119 billion.
118 million there, 1.2 billion.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
Even look at AC Milan in third. They're like $500 million. And Real Madrid's pretty much $1 billion. That's insane. And then
it's also insane to look at the difference between AC Milan and Man City, isn't it? Because Italian teams used to dominate European competition, and they're less than half, worth less than half of them now.
Yep, that's why I thought I'd bring this up, because we can all just look at the names on a screen and stuff like that, but this actually, makes it a little bit more interesting. So then if we go a hardest draw based on team coefficient, Man City, Real Madrid, Shakhtar Donetsk, us. And then the group prediction. Oh, hey, we're in the Europa League. There you go, Steve. That's your pick with Donetsk before. So
I don't like these draws. They've got us in with Man City and Real Madrid twice. I'm not liking this. I'm getting scared.
Just let's be a little realist about it. That's what it. Hardest draw based on market value. Real Madrid, Man City, AC Milan. There we go. And it's the same as the first one, right? So we'll skip over that. Now, if we want to go the easiest draw based on club ELO. Feyenoord, Leipzig, Donetsk, Celtic. Yes, please. Give me that every day of the week.
I think somebody in the comments said that group actually, right?
Yep. However, they've still got us last in that group. Figure that out.
Yeah, how did we end up finishing above Shakhtar in a harder group?
In a hard one, but in an easy one where is it because the other two teams are dropping points to them potentially?
Yeah, maybe.
Bit of a weird one, isn't it? And then easy is based on team coefficient. Feyenoord, Arsenal, Copenhagen, and us. There you go. We're in third. And then the last one based on market value. Feyenoord, Porto, Copenhagen, us. And we're in third again. So, yeah.
Yes, please, sir. I'll take that one. Thank you.
I would settle for that one too, actually. Right?
That'd do me quite nicely.
Thank you very much.
There we go. Well, that's an interesting little look at that there. So now it's time, boys. We get stuck in. Derby on the weekend. So what matchups do you think will be critical to the match result on the day? I'll start with you, Stephen. Where do you think the game will be won?
Well, I think a lot depends on who we get over the line between now and then in terms of transfer. So if we get Phillips over the line and he goes in there at centre half, depending, we might even get a left back, but I still think he'll probably go with Greg Taylor. A lot of it is going to come down to how we cope in the first 10-15 minutes of the game, because they'll come out like a house on fire and they'll put us under a bit of pressure early on. But I think if we get through the early stages intact, this is all assuming that Liam Scales is not in our defence, but if as we expect that Phillips comes in and gets put in the team, I think we'll be okay. Their midfield kind of worries me a little bit because there's plenty of pace in there, there's plenty of power in there, and they've got a lot of energy, and I just worry about guys like Matt O'Reilly getting overrun in there. I'd like to see Iwata there just to steady the ship a little bit. And but I'm not sure if we will. We need to see what that happens. And again, it'll be down to our wide players, because Rangers, their tactic again is the same as it's been in every season for the past 5 years. It's, get the fullbacks high up the pitch and throw plenty of crosses in and play for the second balls. Get close to our box, you get diving, and Mr. Robertson will certainly oblige you, giving them plenty of free kicks. So there'll be a lot of set pieces coming into our box. So it'll be depend a lot on how our centre halves can match up and deal with their aerial threat. And if we can deal with that, then I think we've got half a chance in this game, especially if some of the transfers we're talking about come off.
I'll agree with you on that, Stephen. Like, we bring in some guys, we strengthen it up a bit, and then we, can keep everything nice and steady at the back. Yeah, we're a chance. But, yeah, my concern is the same as yours. Like, they're free kicks for Tavernier. They're diving that comes from a certain TikTok Todd. And then their size that they brought in a bunch of 6-footers across the board, and how small we are when it gets to corners and that sort of situation. That's the thing for me, where they tend to want to clog up the middle of the park, kick lumps out of us, make us play around them, but then go wide themselves and then whipping those crosses to us against our smaller guys. So for me, I'm looking at it going, depends how the game's played. If we can control the pace of it all, great. But I'd love Awada to come in and, be in there to match kick to the shin with kick to the shin, basically, that they're going to do, and, free Kelmack up into an 8 a bit and see if that gets him into some form. But Willie.
See if you look at it, though, if you look at some of the guys we've signed, though, I mean, Palma's, I think he's 5'11", isn't he, Palma? Which is pretty tall for a winger. I think Yang is also 5'11", so he's pretty tall for a winger as well. And if we bring in Phillips, he's 6'3". Lagerbielke is also 6'2" or 6'3". Alistair Johnston's quite tall. So we are, although the concerns are that they've got a load of big guys in their team, but we are sort of bringing in some bigger guys slowly but surely. The sort of average height of our team is increasing. So yeah, I'm not too worried about the height they've got in their team. I just worry a little bit about getting overrun in midfield.
Okay, Willie, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think key to the game is pinning their fullbacks in. If you can pin their fullbacks in to their own half and they can't get out, you're going to nullify a lot of their creativity. But I think the midfield is essentially where this game will be won or lost, and that's why I would bring Iwata back in. Put Iwata, and I would play a 4-2-3-1. I would have Iwata and Kalmack sitting as a double pivot with O'Reilly in front of them. And by the way, O'Reilly's another one who's just short of the 6-foot mark, or just over the 6-foot mark. But I'd have Yang.
I think he's just over 6 foot.
Yeah, I would have Yang on one side of him and Maeda on the other. And if Maeda doesn't play, then I would have Yang on the other side and Abada on the right. But the midfield is where this game's going to be won or lost.
So I'm going to bring up some comments here, because for me, I always say the issue when we play them, you're saying about pinning their fullbacks in. For me, it's more about turning them around and making them have to track back, because yes, Barisic is out hurt, but if you've got Maeda with his direct running on one side and Abada on the other, getting the ball, beating a man and getting in behind him, they've got to turn around and get back and defend. Otherwise, we're going to get in the box, which means when they get the ball and they try to come forward, they've got to go further up and down the pitch, which means Tavernier is nowhere near as influential for them. Yeah. But we'll get some of the comments here. So we asked what matchups or whatever. Robert Gibson was saying stomping on Cantwell's head will help. Paul Galantry is saying Yang to be a match winner, and that Yang will have Tavernier in his back pocket. Pete McGee is the key for Sunday is to control midfield. If we lose that battle, we'll lose the game. Mahesh is saying that he disagrees with Steve and it's still advantage Celtic in the midfield despite Rangers recruits. RL77 is penalty to Rangers. Strangelove the Doctor is PSV set up a 3-4-3 and exploited the space between Sevco lines. Also, the zombie right-hand side, easily the weakest area to exploit. And then Strangelove also brought up that Don Robertson, Rev, fourth official Steve McLean, VAR, Alan Muir, SFA must be shitting it if we win. So there's some thoughts there and everything, but yeah, what we'll do is, how do you think we're going to line up on the weekend, Stephen? Will Scales be in there? And if he does have to play because, say, we don't bring Phillips in time, how nervy are you going to be with Scales at centre back?
Well, I think it's just as simple as this. If Scales is in there when we lose the game, I think it's just as simple as that. I don't think he's not up to the level required to be a Celtic centre half, and I wonder if he's even up to the level required to be an Aberdeen centre half. I'm not sure whether he's up to the standard of playing with any Premier League team. He was asked to defend 3 times last weekend and came up short 3 times. He was ponderous in possession, and he just looked as if he wasn't sure what he was supposed to be doing. So I believe if Scales is in the starting lineup, then we lose the game. It's as simple as that. So for that reason, I think most of the socials are saying that the Phillips deal is close to being done, and I would put him straight in the team alongside Lagerbielke. And I think having a guy like that, although he's a backup player at Liverpool, he's very experienced, and he'll be able to talk Lagerbielke through the game. And I don't think going to Ibrox will faze him at all. Fullbacks kind of pick themselves. It'll be Johnson on the right, and it'll be Taylor on the left. I thought Taylor was a little bit better last weekend than he had been in the previous weeks. Still wasn't great, but I think he's sort of getting there. I thought Ralston was pretty poor, so I'll be happy to see Johnson getting the nod in that position. In midfield, I would like to see Iwata and Kalmak, as you say, playing a double pivot with O'Reilly a bit further ahead of him. I'm not sure whether he'll do that, though. He's not really been keen to play Iwata up to now. Really not sure why. But if we do see that, I'll be pleasantly surprised. I think it's more likely he'll go with maybe either Turnbull or Home. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays Turnbull, and I'll be pretty disappointed in that, because I think, again, this is a game that will just pass David Turnbull right by, and Rangers midfield will just run all over the top of him. So I hope he plays Iwata. I doubt he throws Bernardo straight into this game. I think he would be on the bench and a guy to possibly bring on in the latter stages of the game, but I don't think he'll start the game. And up front, it'll be Kyogo, the number 9. And on either side, he'll have. I think he'll start with Abada and Maeda and go tried and tested in this fixture, because both of them have been there and seen it and done it. But it'll be good to have Palma on the bench. And if Maeda is not playing well, as he hasn't been playing well in almost every game this season, that's an easy substitution to make. And all of a sudden, I think one of the problems that we all saw last weekend was our bench was terrifyingly bad. And when we started to make substitutions round about the 60-minute mark, we got worse, basically, because the quality just wasn't there on the bench. But this week, we look as if we'll have genuine options on the bench that can make a difference to the game, and I think that'll make a pleasant change for us. But I think he'll go Abada, Maeda, and Kyogo as the front 3.
Got a comment here for you. Don't forget Yang, Stephen.
Yeah, I didn't forget him. I just think that he'll go tried and tested in this fixture. I think Yang will be on the bench, ready to come on and play a part. I think both the substitute wingers will come on. I think Palma will come on as well. But as Ange was always keen on saying, the team that finishes the game is just as important as the team that starts the game. So I think the substitutions will be crucial. I think that's the way he'll go. I may be wrong. I mean, maybe he'll take a chance and go with Yang, because his form's been really good. But I think it's a big ask for a guy who's probably never seen anything like this in his life. Let's be honest. I mean, he's coming out of Korean football. He's not going to be used to going to a place like Ibrox with no away fans there at all. It's going to be a big wake-up call for him and a few of the other players as well.
So we've got a few comments here. So Michael Ross is saying Awada, McGregor, O'Reilly. Mahesh is saying the trade-off is Awada is not as creative as Turnbull, but better defensively. Michael Ross, play Awada as a 6. How many saves will Goldson make? And then what I'll do before we go to you, Willie, for me, my lineup is pretty straightforward. Hart and goals. Juranovic, as you said about Scales, if he
Not
plays.
Juranovic, surely.
Oh,
We're not getting him back, are we?
Sorry, I was just looking at my notes for the I had Juranovic on the other thing for the Champions League.
A rumor there.
No, Johnson. Sorry, Johnson. My bad. Reading the wrong note. Johnson, Lagerbelke, Phillips if he's in, and Taylor. If I'd rather Awada at centre back than Scales. That's saying something. Middle of the park, where you've said if Scales starts, Steve, and for me, if Turnbull starts, we lose the game. We can't have Turnbull and Turnbull and O'Reilly playing together. Pete saying no to Turnbull. Turnbull is a turnip. We can't start or play Turnbull. Get the bull in the bin. So there's a bit of agreement there as well. And then up front, I'd go Barter, Maeda, Kyogo, and just get after him. Willie, what's your thoughts for the lineup?
Pretty much similar. I've got Hart, AJ, Lagerbielke, and Phillips, Greg Taylor, and then two holding midfielders in Awata and Kalmak with Young, O'Reilly, Maeda in front of them, and Kyogo up front. As we see with the Turnbull thing, Callum McGregor's form's been off this season, and I think a lot of it, I will say, in my opinion, is that there's nobody in there helping him. O'Reilly's too far away from him in the pitch, and that guy that's meant to be in the number 8 between him and O'Reilly is Turnbull, and Turnbull's going missing in games. When the going gets tough, Turnbull goes missing. And if you put Turnbull in the game against Rangers at the weekend, you can just forget it. It's the same with Scales too. I wouldn't have Scales anywhere near the team. If he's on the bench, if we get an injury and we have to throw him on there, then so be it. But I wouldn't have him near the starting lineup either. As Maeda has to start. Tavernier is shit scared of Maeda, and Maeda's pace, and Tavernier does not go anywhere near forward as much as he does when Maeda's on the park, because he's always watching over his shoulder, waiting to see when Maeda's going to make his move. So for me, Maeda has to start.
Yep.
I want to just make it clear that I don't want Turnbull to start. I just mentioned that it seems a bit weird if Rodgers, throws Awata into this game when he hasn't played him for a single minute off the bench all season. So I would rather have Awata there as well. And I agree with you, Jared. If Turnbull plays there, I don't think we win the game. It's the same situation with Skills.
I just don't get what the deal is with Awata. I mean, everyone, even in the comment section, everyone is saying, look, Awata has to start this game, mate. You know what I mean? So
don't you tell Brendan what to do. His ego will get
Is Awata just walked in and had a shit in his shoes or something? You know what I mean? There, take that, you can.
So, I just look at it and go, okay, we get through this game on the weekend. We get the win. We're 4 points clear into an international break. Then, as someone in the comments said, Rodgers gets a couple of weeks with them on the training pitch to get a bit more time with the boys, get them in there. We're only playing one game a week at the moment anyway, but the window will be shut and this is what it is. This is our rotation. Lock it in and get through it. But the key things for me are, the midfield. Can't have Turnbull and O'Reilly playing together. And we've got to not have Kyogo dropping into that false 9. We need him up the pitch, getting on the end of things, not coming to get it to play wingers in, and then the wingers having no way to cross the ball into. So I like the idea, Willie, where you said a 4-2-3-1, so that way Kyogo doesn't have to drop in deeper. That would work. I actually would like to see a return to that. But anyway, we'll go our score predictions, and then we'll wrap up the pod. So, Willie, what's your score prediction?
I'm going to go for a score draw, 2-2.
Stephen?
I'm quite relaxed about this game. I think it's important we don't put too much emphasis on it. It's it's only the 4th league game of the season. If we were to lose the game, we'd only be 2 points behind Rangers, who wouldn't even be top of the league in all likelihood. So it's important we don't get over amplifying the result. But I'm not the type of guy who's going to be balanced and reasonable. So I'm going to say we're going to win. We're going to win 2-0 quite comfortably.
I was going to say, I'm looking at it two ways. If I'm being, pragmatic and being a realist and everything with the form we've been in, I was thinking 2-2, like Willie said. If I'm being my typical, bullish self going into a game and everything, O'Reilly's going to rock up with his shooting boots on. He's going to have a hat trick. We're going to win 6-2.
See, if he'd asked me 24 hours ago, I would have probably predicted a home win. I was just, and then I wake up in the morning and they get scattered, and we've got big Nate Phillips coming in. You're just like, oh, hang on a second here. Things are turning. There's a corner there we're turning around here. So,
yeah. Look at it. I agree with that, Willie. You got Palmer's come in. There's our left wing we've been talking about. We've got Nat Phillips coming in, big centre back. We've got another midfielder coming in. We've got they've played a game away from home, got pumped, and now they're going to be leg weary going into this. Yeah, it's one of those games where it's all set up where and the form book always goes out the window when you play a Glasgow derby. Like, it doesn't matter how bad we've been playing, how well they've been playing, or vice versa. The form book goes out the window. So if I look at it from that respect, I go, we're still a chance.
It's important to bear in mind as well that it's international break next week. So, regardless of the result of this game, in a couple of weeks' time, before we play again, we'll have guys like Hatate fit again. We'll have guys like O fit again. And if you add that to all the guys that are coming in, we'll have an extra 2 weeks to training field with Brendan. We'll be a much stronger side the other side of the international break.
Tilio should be back too.
Tilio, yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing him in action.
Absolutely. It's going to be great. So what we'll do is we'll wrap the pod up there. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Stephen and Willie, for joining us on the episode tonight. If you haven't done so, check out our Facebook page and join our group. Instagram, Twitter, Threads. You can find us at Celtic Down on all of them. YouTube channel, jump on there, hit the like, hit the subscribe, like our videos, watch them, whatever, comment. We need to do that for the algorithm. And hail, and thanks for joining the episode tonight. And got a final thought, Stephen?
Yeah, final thought. Happy birthday to Bobby Lennox, the famous Lisbon Lion, true legend of the club, who turned 80 this week. He's a local boy to where I'm from in Scotland. My wife's a friend of the family. So I've been lucky enough to meet Bobby Lennox a few times. And a great man, lovely man, and a true legend of the club, the most decorated Celtic player in history. So happy birthday, Bobby Lennox.
Willie, you got a final thought?
Yeah, before you send your to the parents out there, before you send your children off to student accommodation, teach them how a hot water cylinder works. And then once you've used all the hot water, it takes a while to heat up again before they have to pay electricians call-out charges, like I was there to do today. So yeah, just give them that little talk about it all. Save them a fortune.
Fair enough. And for me, patience with the signings coming in, and we're on to victory on the weekend. And thank you, PSV, for putting a pep in my step today. It's been greatly appreciated. Hail, everyone.
Hail.
Hail.